last 2 weeks. So as work's been progressing, he's been inspecting everything. So the big thing that I anticipate him wanting to see that we've talked about is the fire alarm works, we walk through the building, we see horns and strobes everywhere. We drop the switch gear and we see emergency lights everywhere. Other than that, he's been through the building numerous times. As I said, we have him here every day inspecting everything as we go along. All the ADA issues, you know, as the toilet rooms have been going through. So we've been preparing for that one day, and like I said, what I expect is we're going to demonstrate the fire alarm system. We may be able to get him in earlier. I'm just saying that why I made it September 1, why we agreed to September 1 is just in case when we're doing those system integrations, as we're testing them between the 22nd and the 26th, if there is a problem, we can fix them in time for the 1st. So that we walk them in the building, we set the fire alarm off, we walk around the building, you see horns and strobes everywhere, we drop the switch gear, emergency lights, we're good. That's what I anticipate.
When you do the fire alarm testing, does the do all the klaxons go off? You know.
You mean when he does the certification?
Well, you said you're going to be doing that during the week and all.
The 22nd to the 25th, pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And we do have staff in the building during that time.
Yeah, that's correct.
So having been through that in corporate offices, I can tell you that that if you have a pacemaker, you probably don't want to be in a building where they're doing that. You know, I guess there's nothing we can do about it, but I'm concerned on behalf of the hearing of the staff that has to be subjected to it.
There may be some where we could bypass the horn.
Okay.
We don't want to have them walk through and horns and strobes don't work. Then we got a problem.
I totally agree. Yeah. You got to do it. You know, just bringing back bad memories. So there you go. Anybody else? Al, you had some questions, right?
Sure. This is obviously going to be a moot point at this point since we had the change orders and these were already approved over the summer and stuff. But my question is, on all these change orders we received, obviously, again, these were already approved, over $140,000 worth of different change orders. Why wasn't there so much pushback on? There's at least 10 items on here that I sit there and go, really? For the first one, we paid $5,523 to create a finished appearance. Seriously, $30 million, and we didn't want a finished appearance? This is additional wall finishings required in the toilet room and referee locker room in the girls' locker room area to create a finished appearance. Seriously, we didn't expect that?
That was a wall that was demoed, and the architect had it that it was to be refinished. Well, once you take the surrounding walls around, there's scars and everything on the wall, and it couldn't be left the way it was.
But that wouldn't be thought of ahead of time? That's what I'm just saying. I'm just wondering why it just seems like there wasn't a lot of pushback. We've had change orders. We've gone through a bazillion change orders. It just seems like from a layman's person, and I'm not an engineer. That's why I asked Bob about some of these, and he went through and looked and said at least 10 of these are probably questionable, right?
I think they're I think they're in the architect.
All right.
I don't think they're...
And we've gotten these for 3 straight years. It just seems like, I mean, yes, it's a moot point. They're already approved. They're already done. But come on. It almost looks like, from a layman's person, that someone came in with a low bid knowing they were going to charge us $300,000 in change orders just to make it go up to the $3.3 million or whatever it was. I mean, that's what it just drives me nuts.
I didn't prepare the documents, and we didn't do a constructability review. We were hired after the project was out to bid. So to answer your questions, I can't give you a good answer. I mean, I can tell you that when that issue comes up, we review it with the architect, we get a cost from the contractor, and I vet the cost to make sure it's reasonable. That's the extent that I could do. Can I say it was missed, should have been fixed? I don't.
Al, perhaps you ought to have the architect in a committee meeting, and that probably, and I'll defer to those that are more expert, probably discussion with him.
I mean, like you're saying,
Second.
Bob, you were
I'm just
saying,
a guy, you
maybe
know.
these are E&O issues, and maybe in the future, we could sit there and say, hey, look, some of these things have to go to your E&O. I don't know if that's a
Yeah.
possibility or not.
Really, yes, that's correct. I think that a lot of these can be covered, I'm looking at the general contract mainly. The plumbing, almost everything there was legit in terms of needing to be done. And the same thing with the plumbing, and mechanical. I think those were all pretty much had to be done. They're undiscoverable, they're underground,
Yeah.
this doesn't fit, that
Right,
doesn't work.
right, right.
I get that, but some of these architectural things, especially the one about the casework, oh, the casework doesn't work, well, make it work, our contractor. Golly gee willikers, I'm thinking that's a pretty good E&O claim. So what I'd like to do, what I'd like to suggest is that the facilities committee meet with our construction manager and with Jeff Cardwell and talk about pursuing an E&O claim on several of these particular items that we approved. Because they did need to be done, they did need to be done, but the responsibility for not having picked them up in the first place does rest, in my opinion, with the architect. So whether we're going to need counsel there or not, I don't think so. I think we can come up with the ones we want to push on, and then we can give it to the lawyers to decide how they want to proceed from there, if that's acceptable to you.
Well, I think that your thinking is in line with me. At this point, I'd like to get the project done, and then we can worry about that afterwards. But and you didn't bring up the one that bothered me, Al, which was the one where they said it's a design flaw. I'm like, yeah.
Oh, the design error, the $7,271 because they had a design error?
Yeah, well, see, that brings us back to one of our first meetings, if I remember correctly, where we got into the argument about errors and omissions, and don't want to go down that road again. Just want to point out that it's another example of something that's been continuing throughout the project, and I think that we're getting close to done. That's the good news. Let's get done. Let's get the kids back in school, and then let's figure out what we're going to do from here.
Yeah, just to kind of summarize, I don't intend on going after every change order that occurred because many of them were legitimate and many of them were this. But I think that we have a reasonable person would agree that these should have been known or discovered, especially the one I was mentioning about the casework, should have been known or designed by the engineer. And they do carry errors and omissions insurance for this very purpose. And I don't think there'll be a whole lot of pushback. Do we have retainage? Do we have retainage on the architect still?
Yeah, we don't,
Okay.
we haven't paid the full contract.
That will cover everything that we need, that we're likely to get back from them anyway. All right?
Anybody else? Moving on.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you.
The second discussion item was just concerning the board meeting locations. We had talked last spring, I guess, about moving the board meetings back to the district office, and of course, at that time, you were sitting with sun in your eyes over there at the high school. We're recommending that we consider that. I think you can see from behind us that we have another system now, so we can put our board docs back there for the public, use the front projector for the presentations, and it's conducive to probably the lion's share of the meetings that we might have. So that would be our recommendation, but that would be your decision. Also, the equipment, trying to transport it around is becoming an issue, cumbersome.
The only concern I have is the size of our audience is awfully small here. As we could see, we don't have that many people, but it looks like a full house. Most of the time, that's going to be just fine, but there are times when it's not. And
Quantity is the quality.
well, so what? But the thing is that if we don't know that we're getting a big crowd until they show up, then it's a little late to move to the cafeteria.
Well, we used to have chairs where Gus is and then over on the other side as well, so I think we could work with the custodial staff. We can get more seats in here. This can go back further. I think it's out pretty far. I think it's out further than it normally is, actually.
Also,
So I think
is
there's a lot more room.
our idea to move this back when we have the 2 student representatives? Because this side ain't fitting 2 more people.
No, I know, we have to work on that,
Okay.
Al, but like I said, we don't usually have this much room behind us. So I'll work with the custodians, and we'll have to do a dry run of how we would like the room set up before.
Then the other issue I have is just that I enjoyed the local flavor of the visits to the schools and feel that we'll be losing something by doing this for the sake of efficiency. And that's not to say that efficiency doesn't have its merits, but I'd be interested to know what the rest of the board thinks about this. Anybody have any opinions either way?
I agree with you. The schools always do such a nice job preparing, and there's sort of a sense of excitement, and then we get off and they put on performance of some kind or give out some kind of awards. I feel that I don't know, this feels very sterile. And when we go into the schools, I feel like we're a little more approachable, and it's just nice. It's especially as a parent with much older kids, to go in and see the little ones sing, or, you know, get their awards for behavior or whatever. I think it's great. I really like it, and I think it gives the public an opportunity to come out and applaud their children, and then you know, possibly stay and see the board in action. But usually they all leave, but still. And they usually provide really good snacks too.
I actually agree completely with Ashley, because obviously before our election, before we were elected, when the board actually went to locations and such, there was always, and I understand the reasoning why they decided not to do that anymore, but that was definitely the highlight of what I liked watching in the board meeting. I don't know if it's feasible or not, but boy, I'd like to at least get that like once a month or something, to at least visit once a year maybe to each school. If we can't do it feasibly every month, we were trying to change schools. Okay, that I get. But maybe we can do it just once a year at each school, so at least we could get something.
In the past, one of the things that was done was that you had a board meeting that was the official, and a lot of the granting of the orders and all that was done on one night, and then sort of 2 weeks later on the working session, it was a less formal meeting. Perhaps we could have the regular meetings here and have the working sessions remote, and we could investigate getting some sort of more robust AV system that's more portable, more easy to set up than what we're dealing with now. Maybe a couple of local microphones, that we wouldn't have to have a microphone at each desk or each seat, something like that, that would make it easier for our custodians. And again, it wouldn't be so many action items, it would be mostly, you know, discussion items and then the presentation from the schools. So there wouldn't be as much of a need to have the sound quality be quite so good as there is at a regular board session. What do people think of that?
They tried that, and it's actually what was, it ended up being, that work session ended up becoming a board meeting. So, I mean, I wasn't involved back then, I was in the audience, but it was pretty much just two board meetings. Even though it was a work session, it ended up being a board meeting with all kinds of different action items and such. So I don't know if that's still, and then you got the additional cost you're saying of building a more robust AV system and such like that. I don't know.
Yeah, the work sessions turned into, well, what we did was committee of the whole, and the committees of the whole took an exceptional amount of time. The meetings were very long. Not that they're not long anyway, but, you know, we abandoned that after about 3/4 of a year of doing it. And then last year we came back to basically 2 board meetings and committees on this, you know, before the board meetings or on alternate days. And I don't know if I want to go back personally to the work session idea, but that still doesn't mean that we couldn't keep doing what we've been doing for as long as I've been going to board meetings, which is to have the meetings at the schools. There's some functionality that we would lose, though, if we do that right now, as it relates to board docs. And, you know, there's the hassle of and time and cost of transporting the equipment to factor in, although that's something we've been doing. Anybody else have thoughts?
Yes, I do. First of all, I like to be connected with the students also. I mean, that's really one of the reasons why we're all here. We're all here for all the students, and I always felt connected when you're at the schools. I do like the idea, Al, you have, where maybe we just meet, have a work
each
session,
year,
like
yeah.
like Bob said, and then we go one per school. And that might be some cost savings for our staff to set up and everything, but the connection with the students is really key.
I like seeing the students as well when they come out, and whether it be for awards or presentations. But in my mind, I'm also thinking we're not that spread out as far as the district goes, and this is sort of centrally located. Could we not have, well, assuming there's not like a large dance routine or something like that, but could we not have the students still come here? And do the schools, two things I'm wondering about is, one, do the schools want us to go there and add, because that adds its weight to their staff to make sure it's especially cleaned up and everything for them. The staff has to wait longer. But then, if we can have the students come here, it's, in some cases, from Reading Rocks, it's an extra 30 seconds. West is probably the farthest, and West is about 12 minutes from here. It's, so I'm just thinking it's not that far, that maybe, carpooling and whatnot just might be a way to get the best of both.
The only thing I would say is, I don't think you'd fit them here. You'd have to go to the high school. And two, again, I'm only going by when I was attending from the public side, was they usually use the stage at the different buildings. When we were at West, they were doing, it was like some type of sit-down type thing, and they would always use the stage at the different buildings because we were in the cafeterias. So you would lose that as well.
I think I think the students, teachers, everybody who puts those presentations on for us probably feels more comfortable at their own school, and then they get to show what they're doing at their school. I like walking through the schools, seeing what's on the walls and all that, especially at the elementary schools. I just wanted to remind and get back to the reason this all came to be was because we were trying to find ways to make our meetings efficient and effective, so because we felt like we were pressed for time to talk about the big issues, and we spent a lot of time, and I know this is the way we presented it back to Shelley. We said we spent a lot of time on presentations and stuff, and I don't think we meant the student presentations, but we wanted to find a way to make our meetings more productive, and give us more time to talk. So, but at the same time, I don't want to lose the connection we have with the schools and those students. I enjoyed that, and I thought it was beneficial. Helped me understand why we have to make some of the decisions we make. So I would agree, maybe not every other week, switching to a different school, but get there once or twice a year, to see what they're doing and to let them present.
And if we did it, like, say, again, this is just thought, if we did it at least once or twice, depending, I'm sure we could try to cut down on the agenda for that time period so we can allow the students to present and still have discussion on the items that we really need to discuss.
Well, I'm not sure.
Math being an ugly thing. Math being an ugly thing. There's 5 buildings. If we go to each building twice, that's 10 meetings. Guess what? That's the school year. So
Yeah,
we're back to a working session and a
Right,
regular
and that's what
meeting.
I was going to say. Is,
So, I mean, if we do it once, then fine. It's
I was
every
going to
other month.
say, I've been doing this enough to realize that we go to the schools twice a year, or we have for as long as I've been coming to board meetings. So, but cutting it to once a year gets us there, reduces the cost. I think that's a pretty decent compromise proposal from you, Al, and I think I would be okay with that personally. Anybody else have additional thoughts? If not, I'm going to make a motion. So my motion is to revise the proposal to have us go to each school once during the school year, but have the rest of the meetings at the district office. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any comments or questions?
Could I get you to amend your motion to have an abbreviated schedule of business at those remote meetings?
Could you?
It's
Well,
tough.
you could make the amendment,
That's tough.
but that's a hard one because how about amend the motion to make every attempt to limit the schedule on those days?
I'm happy to stay here all night, okay? Because that's the job. So if folks want to get out earlier, and that's been a cause of concern before, then, you know, I offered it to you, more as a compromise to you than for me. But I'm perfectly happy with your motion as it is.
I like to get out earlier, and I know some of our staff and audience members and press like that as well, but I don't want to be irresponsible. And
Mark wants to go home.
Then leave me out of this.
you get paid to stay. So, no, I really don't want to make that amendment, but you are welcome to.
Yep.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 9-0.
Moving on to action items, I recommend that you approve your professional staff resignations as presented.
I'd like to amend that motion to include all personnel items.
I'll second it.
I'm making a motion to approve all personnel items.
And I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0.
Moving on to business, I recommend that you approve the one-to-one aid contract as presented. So moved.
Second. I have a motion and a second. Are there any comments or questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 9-0.
I move that we approve all the tuition agreements, the 3 tuition agreements, 11, 2, 3, and 4.
And I'll second that.
A motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0.
I recommend that you approve the bus bid for the purchase of 3 72-passenger school buses to Wolfington Body Company Incorporated as presented. So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Are there any comments or questions? My question, then, is, and of course we budgeted for this, right? So, and we discussed it at the last budget meeting. The plan that we put in place a while ago to rotate out the buses, refresh my memory as to what happens with the bus that gets rotated out.
Well, if necessary, we retain buses occasionally, don't trade them in, if we need to supplement our fleet. But the intention this year is to trade them in. The 3 buses that are proposed for trade-in are 2001 buses, so they're 15 years old. We've gotten more than their normal life expectancy out of them. And the vendor is willing to provide us with a modest trade-in allowance.
That, I see that right in front of me if I just looked more carefully. So $3,100 each?
Correct.
For buses that new cost $80,000?
Correct. Well, they were much less than that at that point in time.
Fair
but
enough.
They were probably above 70 in 2001.
I guess that's right. It feels awfully low to me. I mean, shouldn't they give us a little bit more money?
This is one of the largest unit trade-ins that we've gotten historically. At one point in time, they were like $750. So,
So we're zooming.
we're zooming.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Are there any other comments? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0.
Authorize the American Cancer Society's request to use the high school stadium for the 2017 Relay for Life as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Are there any comments or questions?
Yeah, I do. Go ahead.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank all the volunteers who do this. I know they had over 2,000 participants. It's going to be held June 3rd and 4th. And this year, the event will mark the 20th anniversary. I cannot say enough about volunteers who fight the fight for all cancer survivors and their families. And it's such a celebration of life that I'm just so thrilled and honored that we host this every year.
And I do want to make a comment in regards to the Relay for Life, and I know I'm probably going to get a lot of flack and a lot of evil eyes on this, but I do need to point out that we actually allow a business to operate at our facility to make a profit. As in this particular company, and it is fantastic that we have people that volunteer. We had fantastic kumbaya at our school and everybody, and I definitely don't want to take away from any cancer awareness at all. I mean, we do the pink out night, we do all that. I don't want to make that look like I'm saying I'm any against that. But this one particular company, Relay for Life, is part of the, if I'm not mistaken, part of the American Cancer Society or whatever, and they donate roughly 1 cent for every dollar donated. So in essence, they are there just to make a buck. Now, again, I don't want to put anybody out there saying that I harbor any ill will towards anybody who wants to be there. It is definitely a community event. It is definitely a very nice community to get together, to do everything they do to help make a cancer awareness, and other organizations, I'm sure, make donations while they're there. Absolutely. I just don't feel comfortable voting yes for a company to come in and profit money.
Then don't. I'd like to just finish that. As a survivor myself, when you have a Relay for Life, you're honored to have it at your facility. I don't care where the money goes. We are all together celebrating life. That is what is important, bringing the community together to celebrate life. It's not a kumbaya, okay? Until you've walked in those shoes and you have been through it, and you fight and you have no choice. But when we come together, that is a celebration. And I, again, will fight and say I am so honored that we have been able to host this for 20 years, and we will continue. What they do with the money is a whole separate issue. But for them to come to Pottsgrove is an honor.
Well, Mrs. Graham, I hardly agree with you that it's a separate issue when 10% of the money is going to the people who need it, which are the people who are suffering. Well, do you think the community understands that that's not the point?
Yes.
I really doubt that. They're raising money, and people are raising money and giving money based on their belief that they're making a difference for a terrible disease that people are suffering from, that many of us here at this table have had family members or even have suffered from ourselves. So I appreciate your passion on this, but I also remain troubled with the small amount of money that this organization donates to the people who need it. I keep thinking, God, we raise millions of dollars, and it's not going to the people who need it. And then I consider a member of our community right now that I went to a fundraiser on August 1st who has cancer, and she had an organization pay for their family to go to Florida, all expenses paid. She's seriously ill from cancer. You know, and all that money that was raised by that organization went to the people who need it. And it just is very distressing to me that we have these charities that have such high administrative costs, or I don't know if I'm going to say make a profit. because they're nonprofit organizations. I find it troubling too. I see your point about bringing the community together. I raised this concern last year, as you know, and I voted for it, even though I was concerned.
But the bottom line is have you two ever been to a relay play? Have you ever been there in a celebration? Then don't tell me you don't know what it's about.
Well, you didn't give me a chance to answer. Yes, I have.
Oh, okay. I hope to see you next year at ours.
But the celebration and the money are two different things. And the money is very interconnected to the celebration. So I personally am troubled, though I intend to vote for it again. I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's, Mrs. Grimm,
Don't do us a favor and vote for it then if you don't believe in it.
Mrs. Grimm, you're not behaving in an appropriate way. Mr. Leach had every right to raise his concern, but you jumped down his throat, and it's not appropriate.
I spoke from my heart.
Fair enough. Does anybody else have any comments or questions?
Yes, I do. As somebody who had a family member who never even had a chance to go through chemo because at that point, the research was lacking. So, you know what? I got to watch my mother die over the course of 6 months, daily. And there was no, whether you're Relay for Life, I really didn't care about celebrating life with him. I wanted research to help her. So when we say there's $10 million raised for research, when really the number is probably closer to about 500,000 to $1 million, that's my problem, because while many people want to get together and do something, perhaps instead of having that money go, can we do something on our own? There's other organizations out there that proudly point out that they have over 50% of the money raised go to research. That to me would mean a lot more. So while maybe I don't understand your shoes of being there, you don't understand my shoes from being at this point where research was really the bottom line.
I understand that, but it's a celebration. Community comes together to celebrate.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. I've read the same things that you guys have all read concerning how much the CEO of the Relay or whatever organization puts it on is paid. And to me, I find that appalling, because this is supposed to be all about the research and helping other people who are diagnosed recently or in the future live longer. And when I do hear that very little of the money that's raised is put towards research, it's troubling. And it's not fair to all of these people that come together and celebrate life, because all of the money on all of the hard work that they put into this should be then put right into research and right into helping other families. It shouldn't be put into the pockets of people who are sitting in a boardroom somewhere or in an office somewhere. And to me, that's concerning. Celebrations can be had without lots of money passing hands. And I think Jim has a good idea of maybe not this year, but maybe in the future, we look at another organization that could possibly, back this, or do it on our own. Pottsgrove obviously knows what they're doing. We've done this for years. Take a step away from Relay and do their own. And then you know that every dime that's being raised is going right to research.
Would the board be interested in having someone from the American Cancer Society come out and talk to you about what the funds are used for?
Can I add to that? My suggestion, I don't think either point that we're hearing is incorrect, and they don't go against each other. I think everybody that's spoken has excellent points. What about, of course, moving forward? I don't hear anybody disagreeing with moving forward this year. because it is such a celebration and community event, and continue that tradition, but perhaps write a letter from the district to whoever is running Relay, the American Cancer Society, or whatever it is, and express our concerns. You know, this is what we're reading. We have, you know, opened our doors and our hearts and so forth, and want to continue to do that, but we've all been touched one way or another from those that have suffered from this, and we want to see as much, you know, money going to actual research, and we're concerned that your organization is not doing that. And then at that point, you know, hear from the representative. What's the thoughts on that?
My thought on that is, I'm pretty certain the American Cancer Society has gotten a lot of letters on this subject already, and that not that we shouldn't do what you're suggesting, but that we should be realistic about the likelihood of there being any change.
And I'm not suggesting there would be, I don't think so, but at least we voiced, you know, our opinion on the issue.
Well, I hear two different things from this discussion. Continued concern about the funds that are raised going to the people who need it, or going to research. And the recognition of a community gathering that has value to members of the community. I think that Jim makes a great point about looking into alternatives. I think I would be okay with approving this for this year if we could get a small subcommittee together to work on investigating alternatives for the subsequent year. And if we could do that, then I would, because I raised this concern last year, but I didn't do anything about it, and neither did anybody else. So here we are again. And I just don't want to have this discussion next year and once again be in the same position where we're forced to choose between a rock and a hard place, or a great thing and a not so great thing, all packaged together. So are there members of this board that would be willing to volunteer to at least investigate alternatives, knowing that maybe we end up with Relay for Life at the end of the at the end of that investigation as the best alternative? Jim, Patty, would you be willing to?
Sure.
We have two people. I think that's enough for this, unless somebody else wants to add to it. So, did we? Great.
I mean, I think having more people help do research and find out, because the more stones we overturn, we might find more information that, you know, more positive, negative, who knows what, but I'd rather have more information, make a presentation based on as much information as possible as factual.
Perfect. Okay. So, did we actually get a motion and a second on this yet? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Can I have one more comment?
Certainly.
Can we take up Mr. Nestor's idea as part of that research and have Representative come in, since we are?
Absolutely. I think that would be great, and probably at the front end of that process, so we hear what they have to say. Okay? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries 8-1.
Moving on to construction invoices, I recommend that you ratify the payment of Potts Grove High School renovation project for June 2016 as presented.
Can we combine the construction invoices into a single motion? Please.
Motion to combine the invoices and approve them as presented.
Second. Motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0.
Recommend that you approve the overnight trip as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0.
Recommend that you approve the conference request as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments or questions?
Yes. This sounded awful familiar, the request for Roberta Oxenford to go to a conference. Just last March, so I don't know when she attended, April, May, I guess, the board approved for her to attend a conference. It seems to me for very similar reasons. Do we review what conferences staff have gone to, and if it's kind of a repetitive thing? I just question the necessity of going to an off-campus conference to get the updates when she was just at something for updates a couple months ago.
Well, I'll let Dave speak to this, but essentially, we're required to know what PDE wants us to do, and we have key personnel that we have to send out to various meetings to obtain that information. This is that kind of
Well, I
a
don't
meeting. It's
disagree
not
with
a
that, but
fun
my
conference.
question was, do we review what conferences they've attended, and do those conferences and, the information they're giving, are they expected to last for 2 months till there's updates? And then I just,
Well, if PDE, let Dave explain, but if PDE changes something and we don't, we're not there to obtain the information, it's on us. These are like informational sessions. It's not really maybe they shouldn't be called a conference. It's really like we have to go out and get the information because we're expected to implement things.
Yeah, these conferences, there is a spring and a fall conference. That's what they're called, conferences, of these groups. The spring conference is a little bit more geared towards the PIMS reporting model and what data needs to be gathered for that. The fall talks about some of the filing requirements and the changes in the child accounting area. They're very valuable in that, in addition to the detailed presentations put on by PDE and other well-qualified professionals, what really adds value is the interaction with peers on troubleshooting problems that you've encountered this year or somebody else has had a problem similar to you, and you get to talk about those types of things. But these are routine updates that virtually every district sends people to on a twice-a-year basis. And I guess to answer your question, not to omit it, but we do monitor what they're going to and evaluate the value of them before we would recommend sending them.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0.
Moving on to miscellaneous, I'm recommending that you appoint Potts Grove High School student Mason McIntyre to serve as the student board representative for a 2-year term ending in June of 2018.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0. Congratulations, Mason.
Congratulations, Mason. And also recommending that we appoint senior Maya Steele to serve as the student board representative for a 1-year term ending June of 2017.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0. Congratulations.
And now we're at committee items.
I got a motion to combine the two committee meetings.
These are just minutes.
Yeah.
Just to accept the minutes.
These are motions to accept the minutes. We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 9-0. New business, anybody?
question that I meant to ask earlier, and I can't keep up with this note thing that we have to do on here. I didn't realize my note was there. We are requested to approve monthly expenditures of I have one concern in regards to we're routinely approving credit card use without knowing what they were used for. Everything else is individualized and very specific because of the nature of checks, and you're able to do that. I don't have any concern or any doubt of the need of credit cards, because sometimes, I mean, like one thing was, pizza. Well, they're not going to take a check 2 weeks later. They want to cash their credit card. But is there a way to somehow, see what we're approving? I mean, Dave was nice enough to send that to me today, but when I requested it, but is it something that would be too burdensome to somehow report out? I don't know how that works system-wise, because I'm sure we need the credit cards, but we're just kind of approving what we don't know what was spent.
Short of sending you a copy of the invoice, I'm not sure that the accounting system has the ability to print out any more detail than what we have now.
Then perhaps that's what is necessary to include in the material. And this is just me, so please, other board members, speak up, absolutely. I just, as you know, personally have trouble voting for something that I don't know, that I don't have all the information on what I'm voting for. What's been done the past few months has been fantastic as far as detail and explaining things, and has been very helpful. I just struggle with the credit card, approving the credit card expenditures without knowing, what they're being used for.
Dave, can I just ask a question? So there's got to be a process for this, right? When I spend money to travel or anything, buy equipment, I fill out an expense report. Somebody who's responsible for reviewing that, I sign off on it as being accurate and honest, and then the reviewer signs off on it as being accurate and honest, and then I get reimbursed. Same as if I use a company credit card. I sign for people's expenses, somebody signs for mine. I'm assuming we have a process.
Yeah, I think what Mr. Parker is referring to is the corporate credit cards that we have. And yes, the items that are, only a select few people have the credit cards in district office, and they're used for specific purposes, and all the information is accumulated to support the invoices and approved through the business office prior to payment.
So Bill, I guess this is my opinion, is that there's people who we're deeming responsible and would hold accountable to do those, make those reviews and approvals, and detail is time and money, and I don't disagree with time and money for detail we need, but I'm just saying personally, my point of view, I'm comfortable with the people responsible for reviewing that, to review it accurately and sign off on it, and then.
And then an auditor is another layer on top of that.
Right. So I'm satisfied, that's my opinion, is I'm satisfied that everybody's doing their job and the auditor's holding us accountable for it.
I hear what you're saying and get the level, idea of levels and so forth. My only issue ongoing is approving some, or personally, just individually voting for something that I don't have, I don't know what it is. But that's just me. I mean, that's.
I think I'm with Matt on this. I'm all for providing the detail necessary for us to feel comfortable with our decisions, but as long as we have a process in place that would prevent me, if I were a district employee with a corporate credit card, from going out on a binge and then charging it to the district, then and that we have controls in place that if somebody did do that, it wouldn't be approved. Then I'm comfortable delegating that authority to those members of the administration that are responsible for ensuring that our purchases are in line with expectations. And so I would prefer to keep from adding additional burden on the administration as you're requesting. That's my personal take. I don't know if anybody
I have a follow-up question then. Who has the credit cards and who is the second set of eyes who approves for that person's cards? So in other words, I believe from what I read in the report, it's the top-level administrator. So I'm just, as an example, because I think it's just 4 or 5 of you, right? So like if you use a credit card for whatever, who approves that, or if Ms. Viola does, who, you know, I'm not trying to individualize people, just the people that have them. What's the approval process in place?
I'm not sure if this is a conversation for public viewing, but the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, the business manager, and the technology director have cards. The process is the invoices are collected by the accounts payable department. They're compared to the invoice. They're then approved by myself. And if my costs would get approved by my assistant.
And ultimately validated by the auditors.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think that's important to know. So there isn't a motion here. This is just a discussion item, correct? So anybody else have something? New business? Are you?
I have
Okay.
just one real quick thing. I received some information from PSBA. It's about electing leadership again. So I'm going to be sending out email information about the candidates, and then we're supposed to discuss either we can do it at our next meeting or the first one in September, and then I have to make a vote by the beginning of October. So just wanna, that'll be forthcoming.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Question on the recordings of the meetings, which I think was a great idea and continues to be a great idea. I just see that cost each month. And I, walking through the high school, saw the new studio they're building or revamping, so forth. Any chance that could be a part of the curriculum of that program and getting the students as they're learning how to tape to come in and tape the board meetings and, you know, gets more student involvement, and I don't know.
We can certainly look into it, but there will be a cost associated with, and I have to say that Gus is probably doing this for about a penny an hour, so you're probably going to end up paying more. I'm not sure that we're ready for that yet. I mean, but if that's what you want to do, we can certainly ask someone that we'd have to pay a teacher to come out. We'd have to, we'd have to, whatever other cost there would be, we'd have to pay for it.
Also, just one question. If we were to try and do something like this, wouldn't that sort of negate the schedule that we just passed and force us to have all our meetings in the high school? Yes. Just thought I'd point that out. So, anything else? All right, meeting adjourned.
Hi, I'm Tom Hans, the head football coach at Upper Perkiomen High School.
And you're watching the Pioneer Athletic Conference football
on the PCTV network.